My son thought removing my name from the emergency contact list would make me powerless. 3 days later, the hospital called my lawyer instead. I was lying beneath a thin white blanket in a cardiac observation room at Allegheny General Hospital when Nathan arrived with Claire close behind him. The pressure in my chest had already faded, and Dr. Melissa Grant had assured me that my heart appeared stable, but my son did not ask how I felt. He went directly to the nurse's station and lowered his voice as though I were no longer capable of understanding ordinary conversation. "My mother gets confused under stress," he said. "Please don't let her sign anything until you speak with me." Claire stood beside him in a cream-colored coat, nodding with practiced concern. "She's been forgetting things lately," she added. I watched them through the partially open door. My purse rested on the chair beside me, and inside it was a certified copy of the document Nathan did not know existed. If you enjoy family betrayal stories, hidden wills, and mothers who finally receive justice, subscribe to EverNest Stories. More powerful stories are coming every day. 2 weeks earlier, I had revoked every medical authorization that carried his name. I had also instructed the hospital to contact Judith Bennett, my attorney, if anyone attempted to use conflicting paperwork. I had not done it because I wanted revenge. I had done it because Nathan had started speaking about my life, as though it were a property waiting to be transferred. A nurse named Caroline returned to my room carrying a tablet. She was kind, but her expression had changed. "Mrs. Parker, your son says he is your sole medical contact," she said. "Is that what you want?" I looked toward the hallway where Nathan was watching us. "No," I replied. "One word. Nothing more." Caroline tapped the screen then paused. "There's a legal notice attached to your file," she said. "It directs us to verify any changes through Judith Bennett." Nathan stepped into the room before she finished. "That must be outdated," he said quickly. "I submitted the new authorization myself." Caroline turned the tablet slightly away from him. "The notice was filed 14 days ago and notarized." Claire's hand tightened around the strap of her purse. Nathan looked at me, and for the first time that afternoon his confidence slipped. "Mom, what did you do?" he asked. I folded my hands over the blanket. The heart monitor beside me kept a steady rhythm. I remembered how many nights I had sat beside his childhood bed when asthma made every breath frightening. I remembered the emergency forms I had filled out for school, summer camp, college, and his first apartment. For 44 years, I had been the person called when Nathan needed help. Now he had tried to remove me from my own decisions and call it protection. Caroline returned to the nurse's station. Through the doorway, I heard her ask the operator to place an urgent call. Nathan followed her, insisting there had been a misunderstanding. Claire remained near my bed, her polished smile gone. "Evelyn," she whispered, "you're making this much more serious than it needs to be." I met her eyes. "No, Claire. I'm finally treating it as seriously as you did." A moment later, the phone rang at the desk. Caroline answered, listened, and then looked directly at Nathan. "Mrs. Bennett is on the line," she said. My son thought that call meant I was in trouble. It meant he was. 3 weeks before I found myself in that hospital room, Nathan came to my house carrying a blue folder tucked beneath his arm. It was a cold Sunday afternoon in Pittsburgh, the kind that made the windows tremble when the wind moved down the street. I had just taken a pot of vegetable soup off the stove when he walked in without waiting for me to answer the door. Claire followed him with a paper bag from a bakery and a smile that seemed carefully prepared. "We brought lunch," she said, setting the bag on my kitchen counter. Nathan placed the blue folder beside my coffee cup. "And I brought a few forms we need to update." I looked at the folder, then at him. "What forms?" He pulled out the chair across from me and opened it before answering. Yellow tabs marked several pages. Each one pointed toward a blank signature line. "Basic medical paperwork," he said. After that dizzy spell at the grocery store, Claire and I agreed we should make things easier if something happens. The dizzy spell had lasted less than a minute. I had skipped breakfast, stood up too quickly near the produce section, and felt lightheaded. I drove myself home after drinking a bottle of water. Nathan spoke about it as though I had wandered barefoot through downtown Pittsburgh without knowing my own name. Claire placed a croissant on a plate and slid it toward me. "You should eat before your blood sugar drops again," she said. I had never been diagnosed with a blood sugar problem. Nathan turned the first page toward me but kept his hand over the top half. This just confirms that I can speak with doctors for you. I reached for my reading glasses. Claire immediately began asking whether I had taken my morning medication. Then she asked whether I had remembered to lock the back door the night before. Her questions came quickly, one after another, each one making ordinary habits sound like warning signs. I put on my glasses and read the page anyway. The first section looked routine. My address, my insurance information, Nathan's telephone number. Then I noticed a sentence near the bottom in smaller print. It granted authority over medical and residential decisions if I was considered unable to act independently. Residential decisions? I asked. Nathan did not look at me. Standard language. Standard for what? Claire laughed softly. Evelyn, nobody is trying to move you anywhere. I had not mentioned moving. Nathan pushed a pen toward me. It is just planning ahead. I picked up the pen, then let my glasses slip from my fingers. They landed on the rug beside my chair. While Nathan bent to retrieve them, I pulled the unsigned pages closer. His thumb had been covering more than a heading. The document referred to access to financial records, property management, and long-term care placement. I set the pen down. I want Judith to review this. Nathan straightened so quickly that the chair scraped against the floor. You do not need a lawyer for every family decision. Then she should approve it quickly. His face tightened. Claire folded the bakery bag with slow, precise movements. We only came because we care about you, she said. Nathan gathered the pages and shoved them back into the blue folder. Fine. We will discuss it another time. They left 10 minutes later. After their car pulled away, I cleared the cups from the table and noticed a thin sheet of carbon paper beneath Nathan's chair. Faint words had pressed through from the page above it. I could make out my name, his name, and one phrase clearly enough to chill the room around me. Authority over medical and residential decisions. I folded the page, placed it in an envelope, and locked it inside my desk. Nathan thought he had taken every copy with him. That was his first mistake. The next morning, I carried the carbon copy into my home office and placed it beneath the brass desk lamp my late husband had used for nearly 30 years. The words were faint, but they were there. My name. Nathan's name. A reference to medical authority. Another to residential placement. I did not call him. I did not call Claire. I made coffee, balanced my checkbook, and waited to see what came next. I did not have to wait long. 10:15 my pharmacy called. A technician asked whether I had approved transferring all future prescriptions to a location near Nathan's house in Wexford. I told her I had not. She paused, then said the request had come from Claire, who had identified herself as my caregiver. I asked the technician to place a note on my account stating that no one could make changes without speaking directly to me. She agreed. At noon, an envelope arrived from a neurology clinic I had never visited. Inside was a reminder for a memory evaluation scheduled the following Thursday. The letter thanked Nathan Parker for arranging the appointment. I read it twice. Then I placed it beside the carbon copy. By late afternoon the bank called. Mr. Hollis, the branch manager who had known me for 12 years, sounded uncomfortable. He said Nathan had asked what documents were required to add himself as a joint owner on my checking and savings accounts. He told us you were having trouble managing bills, Mr. Hollis said carefully. I looked at the stack of paid statements on my desk. Every utility had been paid early. My property taxes were current. My credit score was higher than Nathan's had ever been. Did he say I had agreed? I asked. There was a pause. He suggested it was being discussed. It was not. Mr. Hollis promised that no change would be made without my written authorization in person. After we ended the call, I sat very still. One strange request could have been concern. Two might have been confusion. Three formed a pattern. That evening my neighbor Linda Carver stopped by with a container of chicken casserole. She had lived across the street for 18 years and knew exactly how often I forgot things, which was almost never. We sat at the kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. Halfway through her coffee, she lowered her voice. Nathan called me yesterday, she said. He asked whether I had noticed you leaving the stove on. I stared at her. Have you? No, she looked embarrassed. He also asked whether you had ever gotten lost driving home. I had driven the same streets in Pittsburgh since before Nathan learned to read a map. What did you tell him? I told him you drove me to my eye appointment last month and remembered every turn. Linda reached across the table and touched my hand. Evelyn, is something wrong? I wanted to tell her it was nothing. That was the habit I had built over decades of motherhood. Smooth the rough edges. Protect the child. Keep family matters private. But Nathan was no longer a frightened boy asking me to check under his bed. He was a grown man creating a record about me, one conversation at a time. The pharmacy, the clinic, the bank, the neighbor. Each call said the same thing without using the words. Evelyn Parker could no longer be trusted with Evelyn Parker's life. I thanked Linda and asked her to write down exactly what Nathan had said while it was still fresh in her memory. She did. After she left, I opened a new folder of my own. It was red, not blue. I placed the carbon copy inside, followed by the clinic letter, the pharmacy note, and Linda's signed statement. Then I wrote the date across the front. They were not documenting my decline. They were manufacturing it. The following morning, I called Judith Bennett from the same kitchen table where Nathan had tried to place the pen in my hand. Judith had handled our family's legal affairs since my husband, Robert, opened his first small construction company more than 25 years earlier. She had prepared our wills, reviewed the sale of his business, and helped me settle the estate after he passed away. More important, she knew how carefully I managed my own affairs. When I told her what had happened, she did not interrupt. She asked me to bring every document, message, and written note to her office downtown. An hour later, I sat across from her with the red folder resting between us. Judith read the pharmacy note first, then the clinic letter, then Linda's statement. She saved the carbon copy for last. This is not an emergency contact form, she said. It appears to be part of a durable authorization package. She carried the page to a scanner and adjusted the contrast until the pale words darkened across her computer screen. Slowly, the hidden language became readable. The document would have allowed Nathan to make medical decisions if I were declared unable to act for myself. It also gave him influence over where I lived, who provided my care, and how certain expenses were paid. A separate paragraph referred to property management. Judith leaned closer to the screen. Did you sign anything from that blue folder? No. Did Nathan ever have access to samples of your signature? The question made me think of birthday cards, tax forms, insurance papers, and the dozens of documents I had signed while Robert was alive. Nathan had grown up surrounded by my handwriting. Yes, I said. More than enough. Judith folded her hands. Then we should assume he may try to submit a completed version. She asked whether Nathan knew the value of my house. I told her he did. The 3-bedroom brick home had been appraised at just over $600,000 the previous year. I owned it outright. Robert had also left an investment account intended to support me for the rest of my life. Nathan would inherit what remained, but only after my death. Judith looked at the clinic appointment again. A memory evaluation could be innocent, she said. Combined with the bank inquiry, the pharmacy transfer, and statements to your neighbor, it could also help support a claim that you need someone else to manage your affairs. The room seemed unusually quiet. I pictured Nathan building his case out of ordinary moments. A forgotten grocery item, a misplaced pair of glasses, a dizzy spell caused by an empty stomach. Small facts could be stretched until they resembled a different life. What happens if he convinces people I am incapable? I asked. He could petition for guardianship. He would still need evidence and court approval. But the process itself could disrupt your medical care, finances, and control of the house. I thought about the way Claire had said nobody was trying to move me. I had not asked that question. She had answered it anyway. Judith slid the red folder back toward me. We can confront him now, or we can secure your position first. I looked at the faint signature line on the scan page. Nathan expected anger. Anger would warn him. Secure it, I said. Judith gave a small nod. Then we begin today. Before I left, she printed the restored page and placed it inside a sealed envelope. I carried it home beneath my coat, feeling no relief yet, only clarity. Nathan believed age had made me easier to manage. He had mistaken patience for confusion, and silence for consent. Judith moved quickly, but nothing about her work felt rushed. By noon, she had prepared a formal revocation of every medical authorization, financial consent, and residential directive that might carry Nathan's name. I read each page carefully before signing. No yellow tabs. No covered headings. No one talking over my shoulder. Judith watched me initial every section, then called in her notary. The stamp came down with a quiet click that sounded more final than any argument I could have made at my kitchen table. We created a new medical directive naming Judith as my temporary legal representative, only if I became unable to communicate. She would not own my property or control my money. Her job was to protect my written decisions, not replace them. Linda agreed to serve as my secondary emergency contact. Judith also arranged an independent appointment with Dr. Melissa Grant, a cardiologist who had no connection to Nathan or Claire. Dr. Grant reviewed my medications, asked detailed questions about my health, and gave me a standard cognitive assessment. I remembered the date, identified the current president, repeated a list of words, explained my monthly expenses, and described the terms of Robert's estate without hesitation. When we finished, she closed her folder and looked at me over her glasses. "You are fully capable of making your own medical and financial decisions," she said. Her written evaluation went directly into the red folder. Copies of the revocation were delivered to my bank, pharmacy, primary care office, and the major hospital systems in Pittsburgh. Each file carried the same instruction. No change was valid unless I confirmed it personally or Judith verified it through her office. At home, I changed the combination on the small safe in Robert's study. A locksmith replaced the back door lock because Nathan still carried a key from years earlier. I installed 2 simple security cameras, one facing the front hallway and another inside the office where I kept my legal papers. I did not hide them, but I did not announce them either. Then I returned to my normal routine. I bought groceries. I attended Wednesday morning service. I drove Linda to her eye appointment. On Friday, Nathan called and asked whether I had reconsidered the forms. "I am still reviewing everything," I told him. That was true. He sighed as though my caution were an inconvenience he had expected. "Mom, these delays make things harder for everyone." "For everyone?" I asked. He paused. "For the family." I looked at the red folder on my desk. "Then we should discuss it as a family." I invited him and Claire to Sunday dinner. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and the apple pie Nathan had loved since childhood. Claire sounded relieved when she accepted. Nathan sounded confident. Before ending the call, he reminded me to have my identification and insurance cards ready, so we could finish the paperwork. "Of course," I said. Afterward, I stood in Robert's study and looked at the empty space where Nathan expected to find my will. Judith had moved the original documents to her secure office that morning. Only harmless copies remained in the desk. I set the dining table for 3, polished the silverware, and placed fresh flowers in the center. From the outside, it would look like an ordinary family dinner. That was exactly what I wanted. Nathan still believed I was hesitating because I was confused. Claire still believed patience would wear me down. Neither of them understood that every account was protected, every instruction had been replaced, and every door they hoped to open had already been locked. I let them keep believing I had signed nothing. More important, I let them believe they still had time. Sunday evening arrived with a steady rain that silvered the windows and darkened the brick walkway outside my house. I placed the pot roast in the center of the table at 6 o'clock. Nathan and Claire arrived 12 minutes late. He carried the blue folder. She carried a bottle of wine I had not asked for. "You should not be cooking meals this heavy anymore," Claire said as she removed her coat. "It is too much standing." I looked at the roast, the mashed potatoes, and the green beans I had prepared without difficulty. "Then you are welcome to sit," I replied. Nathan gave a short laugh, but Claire did not. For the first 20 minutes, they behaved as though the evening were ordinary. Nathan asked about church. Claire complimented the flowers. I served apple pie and poured coffee. Then Claire set down her fork and mentioned a senior community in Cranberry Township. She described walking paths, meal service, transportation, and a nurse available around the clock. "It sounds expensive," I said. "Not after the house is sold." Nathan answered. The words came too quickly. Claire looked at him, then lowered her eyes. I stirred my coffee once. Which house? Nathan leaned back. Mom, this place is worth more than $600,000. It is too large for one person. Selling now would give you plenty for a smaller apartment and future care. You have had it appraised? I asked. Not officially, Claire said. Nathan corrected her. We only spoke with someone. A real estate agent? Silence settled over the table. Rain touched the glass in soft, even taps. Nathan rubbed his thumb along the edge of the blue folder. We are trying to plan before you are no longer able to, he said. There it was. Not if. Before. He had already placed my independence in the past tense. I looked at my son and remembered teaching him how to balance a checkbook at this same table. He had been 16 and impatient with every number. Now he wanted control of accounts he still did not understand. And who decides when I am no longer able? I asked. Claire reached for her coffee. Doctors. Family. People who care about you. In that order? She did not answer. Nathan opened the folder and removed the forms. This is exactly why we need to finish the paperwork tonight. I placed my napkin beside my plate. Not tonight. His jaw tightened. You said we would discuss it. We did. You are being difficult. The words were quiet, almost childish. Claire touched his arm. Let us not upset her. They spoke as though I were not sitting 3 feet away. I stood and began clearing the plates. Nathan watched me carry them to the kitchen without assistance. Claire followed and offered to load the dishwasher, but I told her I had it handled. When I returned to the dining room, Nathan was gone. The blue folder remained on his chair. I heard a floorboard creak near Robert's study. I did not call out. I did not move quickly. I simply walked down the hallway and found Nathan standing beside the open desk, one drawer pulled toward him. Looking for something? I asked. He turned with an envelope in his hand. I thought Dad's old insurance papers were here. Those are in the basement. He placed the envelope back too carefully. Claire appeared behind me and smiled. He was only trying to help. Nathan closed the drawer and walked past me. Within minutes, they had gathered their coats and left. I locked the front door, waited until their car disappeared, then went to the office. The harmless copies were slightly out of place. The camera light glowed steadily above the bookshelf. I sat at the desk and opened the recording. Nathan appeared on the screen, searching every drawer, photographing pages with his telephone, and lifting the false will I had left where Judith suggested. He had come for more than dinner. He had come for proof of what he believed would soon belong to him. 3 days after Sunday dinner, I was trimming dead leaves from the hydrangeas along my back fence when a tight pressure settled beneath my breastbone. It was not sharp. It was not dramatic. It felt like a heavy hand pressing inward and refusing to move. I stood still, counted my breaths, and waited. The pressure remained. I walked inside, sat at the kitchen table, and called emergency services. I did not call Nathan. By the time the ambulance reached Allegheny General Hospital, the discomfort had eased, but the paramedics recommended observation because of my age and medical history. I agreed. Dr. Melissa Grant met me in the emergency department and ordered blood work, an electrocardiogram, and several hours of monitoring. She spoke directly to me. She asked clear questions. I answered every one. An hour later, Nathan and Claire appeared at the nurse's station. I had not contacted them, which meant someone at the hospital had followed the old information before the legal alert was fully reviewed. Nathan arrived carrying the blue folder. Claire still wore the same expression she used whenever she wanted concern to look like authority. My mother cannot make decisions under stress, Nathan told the intake nurse. I am her authorized representative. The nurse glanced toward my room. Mrs. Parker has been communicating clearly. She has good moments, Claire said softly. That does not mean she understands the risks. Nathan opened the folder and removed a document. Even from 20 feet away, I recognized the arrangement of the pages. Yellow tabs, covered headings, a signature near the bottom. My signature or something meant to resemble it. He handed the form across the desk. This gives me medical authority, he said. Please update the file and list me as the sole contact. The nurse studied the first page. then turned to her computer. Claire moved closer to my doorway. "Evelyn, we are here now," she said. "You can let us handle this." I looked at the blue folder in Nathan's hands. "That seems to be what you planned." Her smile tightened. Nathan joined her and lowered his voice. "Mom, do not make this difficult. The hospital needs one responsible person. They already have one." "Who?" I did not answer. Dr. Grant entered the room before he could ask again. She confirmed that my test results were reassuring but said she wanted to keep me for observation until evening. Nathan stepped forward. "I will approve whatever is necessary." Dr. Grant looked at him, then at me. "Mrs. Parker is capable of approving her own care." Claire gave a quiet sigh. She was scheduled for a memory evaluation. "By whom?" Dr. Grant asked. Neither of them answered immediately. The nurse returned carrying the disputed document. Her tone had changed. "Mr. Parker, we cannot accept this authorization." Nathan frowned. "Why not?" "There is a notarized revocation in the system dated 14 days before this form." She pointed to the signature page. "There is also a discrepancy with the date." I knew the date before she said it. The document claimed I had signed it on the evening of the St. Matthew Community Foundation dinner, where more than 100 guests had watched me present an award beside the mayor. There were photographs, a printed program, and a reception log. I had been 12 miles from Nathan when his document said I was sitting with him. "That is a clerical error," he said. "Then it will need legal review," the nurse replied. Nathan looked at Claire. Claire looked at the floor. The nurse asked them to wait outside while the hospital contacted the representative named in my current directive. Nathan's voice rose just enough to lose its careful polish. "I am her son." The nurse remained calm. "And Mrs. Bennett is her legal contact." She returned to the desk and reached for the telephone. I watched Nathan grip the blue folder against his chest. He had brought the document because he believed it would close every door around me. Instead, he had carried the proof directly into the one place where it could not be ignored. Judith arrived 40 minutes later carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the gray wool coat I had seen at Robert's memorial service. She did not hurry. She did not raise her voice. She walked into the observation room, greeted Dr. Grant, and placed 3 certified documents on the rolling table beside my bed. Nathan stood near the window with the blue folder under his arm. Claire sat in the corner, twisting the ring on her right hand. Judith began with the revocation. It had been signed, witnessed, notarized, and delivered to the hospital system before Nathan submitted his form. Then she presented Dr. Grant's written evaluation confirming that I understood my medical care, finances, property, and legal arrangements. Finally, she opened her briefcase and removed printed images from the security camera in Robert's study. Nathan stared at the first photograph. It showed him pulling open my desk drawer. The second showed him holding the false will. The third showed him photographing pages with his telephone. "You recorded me?" he asked. "I protected my home," I said. Judith placed another document beside the photographs. It was a draft petition for guardianship. Nathan's name appeared as the proposed guardian. My house, investment account, medical decisions, and living arrangements were listed beneath sections describing property and care. Claire's personal email address appeared at the bottom of the cover page. Dr. Grant read silently while the hospital's patient rights officer stood beside her. Nathan looked at Claire. "You said that was only a preliminary consultation." Claire's face lost its practiced calm. "It was. We had to know our options." Judith turned one page. "This petition states that Mrs. Parker repeatedly forgets medication, leaves appliances running, becomes lost while driving, and cannot pay household bills." She looked directly at Nathan. "Which of those statements can you prove?" He swallowed. "We were concerned." "Concern is not evidence," Judith replied. "Neither is repetition." The patient rights officer pointed to the authorization Nathan had brought. "The signature date conflicts with documented evidence that Mrs. Parker was attending a public event elsewhere. We are required to preserve this record and refer the discrepancy for review." Nathan stepped toward my bed. "Mom, I was trying to make sure you were safe. After Dad died, you were alone in that house. What was I supposed to do?" I looked at him. His eyes were the same brown they had been when he was 6 years old and frightened of thunderstorms. For 1 weak second, memory tried to soften what the documents had made clear. Then I remembered the pharmacy, the bank, the memory clinic, and Linda sitting at my kitchen table repeating the questions he had asked about me. "You could have spoken to me," I said. "I did speak to you." "No. You placed papers in front of me and covered the words you did not want me to read." Claire stood. "This is becoming unnecessarily hostile." Judith closed the guardianship draft. "No one here has been hostile. Mrs. Parker has followed the law. The hospital has followed its procedures. The only questionable document in this room came from you." Claire sat down again. Nathan looked around as though someone might still take his side. No one did. Dr. Grant confirmed that I would remain under observation for another 2 hours and continue making my own decisions. The patient rights officer asked Nathan and Claire to leave the treatment area, while the legal review continued. Before Nathan reached the door, he turned toward me. "Are you really choosing a lawyer over your own son?" I held his gaze. "You did not remove my name from a list, Nathan. You tried to remove me from my own life." He had no answer. The door closed quietly behind him, and for the first time in weeks, the room felt large enough for me to breathe. The hospital discharged me shortly after sunset. Linda drove me home, carried my overnight bag inside, and waited while I checked every room. Nothing had been disturbed. The red folder was still locked in the safe. Robert's desk remained closed. For the first time in weeks, the silence in my house did not feel threatening. Felt like mine. The hospital preserved Nathan's document and referred the signature discrepancy for formal review. Judith handled every call after that. She made it clear that I would cooperate fully, but I would not negotiate my independence in a hallway or over a family dinner. Nathan left 3 messages during the first week. In the first, he said the situation had been misunderstood. In the second, he blamed Claire for pushing the guardianship idea. In the third, he asked whether I intended to destroy the family over paperwork. I saved every message. I answered none of them. Claire sent a long email explaining that they had only wanted to protect me from the burdens of aging. She never explained why protection required access to my bank accounts, control of my home, or statements about memory problems that did not exist. Judith replied on my behalf. For sentences. No anger. No debate. All future communication would go through her office until the legal review was complete. The following month, I changed my estate plan. I did not erase Nathan from it entirely. That would have been simple, and simplicity was no longer enough. A portion of Robert's investments went into protected education accounts for any future grandchildren. Another portion was designated for a Pittsburgh nonprofit that helped older adults recognize financial manipulation and challenge improper guardianship petitions. Nathan's remaining inheritance became conditional. He would have no authority over the trust, no early access, and no position as executor. Judith asked whether I was certain. "I am not punishing him," I said. "I am removing the reward for controlling me." 6 months later, I sold the house. Not because Nathan wanted me to. Not because Claire had chosen a senior community from a brochure. I sold it because the stairs had become inconvenient and the yard required more work than I wished to give it. I chose a 2-bedroom townhouse 12 miles away, with a small patio, a bright kitchen, and neighbors who waved when I walked to the mailbox. I signed every page myself. The proceeds went into accounts Nathan could not touch. On my last morning in the old house, I stood in Robert's study with the blue folder on the desk. Judith had returned it after the review. I removed the carbon copy that had started everything and placed it in the red folder. Then I put the empty blue folder into the recycling bin. Some objects carry fear only while their secrets remain hidden. Nathan and I did not speak for nearly 8 months. When he finally asked to meet, we sat in a quiet coffee shop near my new home. He looked older, less certain. He apologized without blaming Claire, the hospital, or my age. It was not enough to rebuild trust, but it was the first honest thing he had offered me in a long time. I told him reconciliation would require patience, counseling, and respect for every boundary I had established. He agreed. I did not promise forgiveness on his schedule. Before leaving, I updated the emergency information card in my wallet. Judith Bennett was listed first. Linda Carver was listed second. Nathan's name did not appear. Blood had made him my son. Trust would have made him the person called when my life depended on it. He had chosen to lose that privilege, and I had finally chosen not to feel guilty for taking it back. Subscribe to EverNest Stories for more emotional family betrayal stories, inheritance secrets, and mother's justice. And watch the next story on screen now.